to prevent that and prevent any plateaus, you gotta give your body a reason to need more muscle. Hey man, Gary Walker here, and welcome back for another video. Today I'm gonna tell you how to build muscle after 50, and I'm gonna give you the ultimate tips that you need. Okay, so here's the thing. Now that you're 40, 50, 60, 70, even if you're in your 80s, then sarcopenia has already kicked in. That's just the natural way of saying your muscle is actually going away. You're losing that muscle tissue. Now, in this video, I'm gonna share what I do for myself and a lot of my clients in my Alpha Maker project. These are a lot of tips that are gonna benefit you now that you're older compared to when you were in your 20s or 30s. That's what makes some of these tips so unique is you don't need to be doing the exact same things that you did when you were younger. You wanna work smarter, not necessarily harder. All right, with that said, the very first thing may seem pretty simple, but it's gonna be key to your success, and that's just consistency, man. You gotta be consistent day in, day out, week in, week out. So once you have your plan in place, let's say you're doing a 4-phase program similar to my programs, then that's 16 weeks. Well, those programs are designed to compound on one another month to month. Basically, you need to be consistent with your workouts every day. You need to be consistent with the food. You need to be consistent with the cardio if that's your goal. We're all different, we're all unique, we all have different goals. At the end of the day, all men need to build more muscle tissue though, but some men may need to also burn a lot of body fat. So if that's you, then you've got to make sure you're doing everything right to do both simultaneously. Do the things necessary that I'm about to share with you to build more muscle, and that in turn will help you burn more body fat. The next thing you want to make sure that you're doing is utilizing some compound movements. Now I know everyone loves calisthenics, push-ups, body weight squats, maybe even pull-ups, and then you graduate from calisthenics and do a few resistance band exercises, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you have adequate resistance. And when you have the right resistance, you want to make sure you're doing the right exercises with that resistance. What that means is a compound movement is a multi-joint movement. For instance, a bench press, where you're bringing the weight down, pushing it back up. That's a compound exercise for your chest. It's also a great overall upper body developer. Now, you don't have to do barbells though. My preference is going to be dumbbells, but you want to utilize exercises like that. So that's the bench press. Then you want to make sure you're doing some form of a squat, a goblet squat, or heels elevated squat, a front squat. Any type of squat that is your preference is going to work. That's a good compound movement. And pull-ups or a deadlift. Now, the main difference, so you kind of get a picture of what I'm talking about when I say compound movements versus all exercises, when you're working your chest, you'll notice the shoulders are working and the elbows are working, 2 joints. That's why it's a multi-joint. Now, for instance, the other side of that equation is if you're gonna be doing an isolation exercise. For chest, that would be a fly. So you're locking your elbows in, and the only thing moving in this position, the only joint working is your shoulders. That's a single joint exercise. A single joint exercise isn't gonna give you the same muscle growth benefits that a compound or multi-joint exercise will. So you wanna make sure you're doing the squats, the back rows, the pull-ups, even deadlifts if you can, bench presses and shoulder presses. So one more example to drive this point home. A shoulder press, if you have a dumbbell, you're pushing it up. So again, elbow, that joint is working, your shoulder joint is working. 2 joints, multi-joint exercise. You're gonna get a lot more benefits doing that as opposed to just doing a front raise. If you're just doing dumbbell front raises, you're only working the shoulder joint. That's an isolation exercise for the anterior delts or the front of the shoulders. So compound movements is key, consistency is key, and then also full range of motion. So a lot of the things I see in the gym when I'm watching people work out is they're doing half-ass reps. So you're not going full range of motion reps. One problem with that. Now, I understand some people don't have a lot of mobility in their joints and you're limited with your range of motion. If that's you, I understand it, but just use your full range of motion, whatever you can comfortably do. The reason being is you want to train your joints in the extreme. So you want to get the full stretch. Not only are you going to get a big stretch in your muscles that you're working, which is going to lead to some stretch mediated hypertrophy. So the more you're stretching the muscle, the more hypertrophy you're going to become. So the more muscle you're going to be able to grow. Now, the other benefit that I'm talking about is stretching the ligaments, stretching the tendons. So when you're stretching those, you're training your body in that bottom range of motion. And by going all the way up and contracting, you're giving your mindset the ability to adapt to the full range of motion exercises. That's also going to be something that's going to improve you going forward with that consistency. And that's going to lead to something that we're about to discuss. At the end of the day, full range of motion with your exercises. But again, be smart and use your full range of motion. So if we're talking squats, you probably heard the term ass to grass. If you're squatting all the way down, some people can basically get their butt all the way down to their calves. If that's you, that's great hip mobility, great ankle mobility, and even knee mobility. But if you can't do that, go as deep as you comfortably can. That will make a big difference. And there's a lot of preventive maintenance there that can keep you from any imbalances, muscular imbalances. Now, the next thing that I utilize, and if you've seen my Tricon sets, this is where that concept came from. More time under tension. You want to place more tension on the muscle that you're trying to work. So that's where the Tricon sets with those isometric holds are really key. Now, if you're not doing Tricon sets, there's a lot of other ways. Just slow down the repetitions. Don't rush through sets. If you're doing a bench press and doing this, you're not keeping the pectoral muscles or the chest muscles stimulated enough. They're not getting enough time under tension. Whereas if you take 3 to 4 seconds to lower the weight, go ahead and explosively lift the weight, but take your time on the negative phase, the eccentric phase, lowering the weight. Every time, 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, pop it up. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, pop it up. If you're doing that type of repetitive work, then you're gonna have optimal time under tension. But that's gonna be key with all of your exercises. I see a lot of people on the bicep curls, they'll bring it up and drop it down, bring it up, drop it down. Well, you're losing out on that time under tension. So you wanna explosively bring it up, but 1001, 1002, 1003, 3 or 4 seconds to lower every single repetition. That's gonna keep more tension on that muscle. All right, so the last tip, I've already kind of touched on it, but I didn't give you the name of it. It's progressive overload, meaning you want to make sure that you're improving from phase to phase. Now, typically that can be every other workout, every second or third week. Just make sure that whenever you're doing a specific exercise with the compound movement specifically, if you're doing just the regular, the flies and the front raises, you don't really need to progress on those. But when you're doing compound movements, you want to focus on that progressive overload, meaning either add a few pounds, add a few repetitions, or add a set for more total volume. If you're adding, you're improving, and you're giving your body a reason to grow. Because if you do the same thing, your body's gonna stay status quo. Your body is always looking to adapt to what you're doing because it prefers homeostasis, staying the same. To prevent that and prevent any plateaus, you gotta give your body a reason to need more muscle. So you've gotta make sure that you are adding those things that I just mentioned. Either way, it doesn't have to be all of them in the same workout, but one workout, maybe add 5 pounds. Next workout, maybe add 2 or 3 more repetitions with that extra 5 pounds. And then the third workout, maybe add an extra set. If you're doing 3 sets, add 4 sets. Those are all forms of progressive overload. Now, lastly, I don't want to forget about just rest and recovery, because at the end of the day, you can work extremely hard in the gym, but if you're not allowing your body enough time to rest, recover, rebuild from the intense workouts, then you're not going to get the muscle building results you're hoping for. So all of my programs are pretty much structured 4 resistance training days per week. I like 4 resistance training days and 3 rest and recovery days. That's typically how I structure 90% of my clients' programs. So that allows for adequate rest and recovery, because again, when you're 20 or 30, you can work out 6 or 7 days a week. Your body's gonna be able to get acclimated to that workload and still recover. However, once you get older, your recoverability is not the same. Your hormones are all over the place. They're not optimized like they once were. Now, the last thing I will point out is when you're doing these type of workouts, you wanna make sure that you are warming up properly. Now, as an older guy, what I like to recommend is 5 to 10 minutes of, even if it's walking in place, jogging in place, or if you got a treadmill or a bike, do a little cardiovascular warm up. That's gonna get some general blood flowing throughout your entire body. It's gonna elevate your heart rate a little bit. And in that time, mentally prepare for the workout. Look at the workout you're gonna do and start preparing for it mentally while you're warming up. That way, when you get into your working sets, you're already ready to go. You're primed and ready to go. You still need to do some acclimation sets, lighter weight sets leading up to your first working sets. But if you're doing that, it's gonna make a massive difference. So there you have it. And yes, if you're hearing the kitty, it's my garage cat that adopted us. So I apologize. Man, if you have any questions at all, leave them in the comments section. Other than that, thanks so much for watching my video. And thank you for watching all of our videos. We have tons of videos on our channel. So go back and watch some of those, whether you need more information on more workouts or nutrition, anything like that, rest and recovery, mobility, we got it all, we've done it all. So go back and check some of those out. With that being said, get busy, get after it, and God bless.